I think really what's happening is that the CPU must be overheating. Let me see if that's the case. I may be thinking that it's demons, but it may be that the CPU is overheating and that it's failing to record the video. I have plenty of space, so I know it's not the space. I have at least 20 gigs available. So it keeps cutting out, after about 20 minutes or 28 minutes or 15 minutes. And the funny thing is it usually happens whenever I start to get somewhere, like on a point. So what I was talking about was, I forgot. And that's Satan's greatest tool is distraction. And so he can keep you distracted. So for me, it's fairly easy to keep me distracted. I'm distracted by myself. I also distract other people, but I try to make it. And so what I was trying to say is, if people can't water down what they believe to something very simple, or at least give you something to go on, then it's not going to be very attractive to really want to know about them. If they're giving you a lot of rules, okay. And I summed up Christianity pretty much for anybody, because somebody asked what are the most important laws what are the most important things in the law, and the most important rules or whatever. And he said to love God with all your heart, mind, and soul, and to love others as you love yourself. And I said that the second follows from the first by the idea that we're created in God's spiritual image. That's an idea. Now, you don't have to accept that, but it's an idea, okay? And if you accept it, then it's religion. But if you don't accept it, then it's just an idea, okay? And when you believe it's true is whenever it's religious, because by religion, you're having the faith that things are true, and then then you live by them, and that's religion, okay? But speaking of religion, there are certain parts of religion that are not really very useful ideas, but will help you understand other people by understanding their religion. The thing that's kind of silly is that conservative Christians or whatever have this saying that if you are so open-minded, your brain might fall out of your head. And the idea, I think, is they're afraid that anything they might learn might disease it might make them impure, and they might incorporate things that are not a part of their religion or not a part of their belief system. But the truth of the matter is that we all do. We all fail to keep things straight and sound, because our brains just are not capable of keeping things straight. I make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. The whole purpose of the Ten Commandments is to prove that nobody's perfect. And the reason why all that stuff was given, that whole Old Testament, is to prove you can't live by law. And you don't want a Christian theocracy. And we can just look at the Muslims trying to maintain a Muslim theocracies to see that it doesn't work. You can't use any kind of philosophical system to control people, to make people behave adequately. It just doesn't work. And it's like leading a horse to water. You can't make the horse drink. And there are some people that believe you can make the horse drink. You hold a gun to its head and say, drink or I'm going to kill you, And that's evil, okay? And so when Christians go out and change the laws to force people to do stuff, that's a pathway to evil, because they don't understand, they don't give people the capacity to fail, okay? If you go after all the abortion clinics, you're not going to allow people to learn why abortion is a bad thing, okay? You need to give people the capacity to fail and to see why abortion is bad. And the reason why is because if we fail to identify with babies, even if you think that you don't believe a fetus is living, the minute somebody shows you a video of a fetus responding to an abortion, that will change your mind. But you don't want to see that. And it's in the same context as the reason why a conservative won't accept your free ideas, is because they're afraid that they might incorporate something into their belief system or into the way that they live their lives that might cause them to fail, okay? And then they're going to regret. I see regret as devil worship. If you fail, you should be permitted to fail as long as you have the intent to do better. And the difference, and what Christians believe is the difference between Christians and everybody else, is that Christians are trying to do it better. They believe that they're free from sin. Therefore, God's going to probably try to fix whatever misstep that they make and keep things good in the world. So if I make a misstep, any kind of misstep I make could be seen as a sin. There's no way I could have absolute perception to know any step that I make might be a misstep or a mistake. Okay? And so the belief is that any mistake we make will be forgiven by God, because if you understand that we've got limited perception and our brain conceptualizes information, you understand we're designed to be imperfect. And the desire to be perfect means that someday in the future, if we made ourselves perfect, then we would not have the capacity to fail. We would lose our human attribute, and that is the capacity to make choices and the capacity to fail and the capacity to learn. We would lose the ability to learn because we know everything. We'd lose the capacity to have poor perception because we would see everything. We wouldn't move. We'd stay in the same place all the time, because if you move, you have the chance of failing. Okay? So that's the reason why Satan hates me, is because I can reveal shit like that. And how in the world my brain comes about to it, where it comes to about it, I have no idea. And all I can say is I don't know if it's of the Holy Spirit or if it's of Satan, or you have to decide that, okay? And I don't know what gets in the way of my videos being so long, but I get patterns thrown at me, numeric patterns. And what happened on the first time it cut out on me is I went out and looked at the iPad storage, and the first number I read is the amount of memory that I'm utilizing, which ends at 111.8, and the amount of memory I got left, which is like, of course, 128 gigabytes, because that's what I got for my device, and I see 128 and 111 to very great degrees. But 128 is understandable, 111 is not. And I've seen people use the number 111, and I'm starting to wonder if they are bothered by that number as well as I am, or if they could be demons in disguise. And or if they're controlled by demons. Because I believe that it's demon control. And God will permit demons to have control over you if there is need for that. It's up to God. And I see it as a form of resistance training. Okay, if I can resist a demon's ability to control me, or if I can resist their ability to make me depressed because they've been able to push numbers of repeating degree to me, then and that I'm trying to avoid making a superstition out of it. And the thing about superstition, the worst part of superstition, is when you act upon the patterns. When you see the 111 and then you go, oh, maybe I'm doing something wrong, or maybe I'm doing something right, or and the thing is that don't act upon the weather, don't act upon the thunder thinking that's God's judgment. Don't act upon thinking that COVID is here because of the judgment, God's judgment on a certain people. It could be that the reason why we were given COVID is because we needed a perfect storm to force us to give ourselves the necessary rest that we will not give ourselves because we're not understanding that we need rest. And I tell people that in the Old Testament there was a Shabbat and a Sabbath. And Sabbath was a seventh day you're supposed to rest, and the Shabbat was a sabbatical year where you would rest. And it's probably the reason why professors in schools are given sabbatical years, is so that they can rest and so that they can learn, so they can teach people better when they're off their sabbatical. Okay. And so, in farming, they use the sabbatical year because it's specified in the Bible that you should leave your fields you need to leave them to not grow them or anything, so they can gain nutrients. And I'm trying to remember what the name is, or the word that they use to describe this process. Fallow. You make your fields fallow, and so they just, you don't work them. You rest, and if you're a farmer, you rest, and you live off of your food stores. Okay, so your grains and things like that. These days it's much easier. Back then, they needed God, whether you believe it or not. They needed God to give them enough grain to cover the sabbatical. Okay. These days we have to have the behavior of giving others that, and because it's not really possible to get a full year off and to guarantee that you're going to have enough food for a full year, the way we did it in our system, and I think this is how it happened, is that we got a Saturday, and our Saturday was the sabbatical split up. You don't have to do the math to really understand it, because you're, 365 days divided by 7. And what does that come to? 350, then you got 15 left. And so what's 15 divided by 7? Well, 14 divided by 7 is 2. And so you end up with 2 plus 50, 52. 52 days. And so 52 days, That would be your Saturday, wouldn't it? Or it would be some day other than Sunday, but Saturday. And so Saturday and Sunday, our weekend, was probably a result of the Old Testament. Now, if we shun the Old Testament and say, oh, it's religion, we don't believe that, and all that stuff, what's going to happen? Especially with evolution, where one of the ideas is survival of the fittest. You're going to eliminate your Saturday and Sunday. You're not going to have rest. You're going to succumb to stress. The stress is going to suppress your cognitive ability. The medical practitioners know about this. It'll suppress your cognitive ability, tissue regrowth. It will suppress your immune system, and it will prevent procreation. So you and the reason why is because that stress is, those systems really don't matter if you are trying to survive, which is what you're doing whenever you're given no rest. Okay? So you're treated like a cog in a machine. You're given no rest, and therefore you get depressed because the world has no value for you. Unless your work means something to you, it's going to get you depressed. And all that other stuff is going to make you sick. And you're not going to think straight. And you're going to feel you have no control. And either you'll live a really dull and unhappy existence, or you'll kill yourself. And God doesn't want you to kill yourself, okay? Whether you believe there is a God or not, you have to understand that there's a magic in the universe that you can't describe that's there. And to try to believe there is no magic is to ignore lots of things, to ignore people, to ignore nature, to ignore the complexity and the design, okay? Because there is design there. If you don't believe there is design there, then why would anybody value your art if you're an artist? If they don't believe there's design in nature, they might not believe that you have the capacity to design anything of worth. Because they don't see worth in nature, they probably won't see any worth in your art. Because what they will see as valuable is things with function, not things with form. Okay? And beauty is a cultural perception. Beauty is different in other cultures. So beauty is going to lose its meaning. All sorts of things will lose their meaning if you give people no rest. It'll break down everything. And so it's possible that, it's possible that the system, that it was a design in the system that it would be known that if any two things came in contact with each other, then there was perversity in the system, then there should be a disease as a result. That should fix that system by making people realize you don't mix certain shit together. You don't do perverse. You don't chase after perversity. Just because you can do it doesn't make it right, you know. And so, and that's the thing. And the funny thing is that I look at porn and I see the perversity, but whenever I'm in the world and I'm relaxing and I'm going about, I don't let that come in. I used to, because I thought it was true, but now that I understand all that stuff is fantasy and a lot of it is perverse, I don't let it come into conversation with other people other than here. I'm just really saying that I've got sin in my life, and it's very difficult for me to get rid of that sin. But the reason why I took on this was because I saw other problems in the world, and it to a degree it is me saying that I can't really have faith in marriage because I see there's lots of divorce. And it's happened to me. I'm a child of divorce. And my stepfather was a Christian preacher. And my real father was a physicist. Both were Christian. Okay? So I see where you're coming from. I see where the world's coming from whenever they deal with Christians. And I think to some degree, I was designed to be the person I am. I have to realize that I am a person. I am myself. I have to respect myself, and I have to express that I'm going to be different from the culture, and I might have been designed to be this way, to cut through a particular area of the culture, to come through as a knife and say, just to cut through and say, I can see things that are going on in the world, and I can understand why they're happening, or I believe I can understand why they're happening. And I also understand that one of the ways that you get rid of arrogant people is by putting your faults ahead of yourself before you talk, or to even intermix it in your talk, because then they're going to judge you on your faults first, and they're going to leave. And that's because they desire to find truth in places where they look for truth. If they believe that you have failure in your life, if you fail at something, then you're failing at everything. And I'm trying to prove that that's not the case. Satan's eager to prove to me that I'm a failure, but I see it as resistance training, and I see that if I don't attack the individual on the other end who's coming to me and saying, I'm a bad person and all this stuff, then I'm okay. As long as I can just help them realize that's their opinion and that they really don't know me. See? That's better than attacking them and saying, now, tonight I did something that I shouldn't have done, but I didn't really understand that it was a problem. I came to a girl that was on X Hamster Live, and she had multiple piercings in her face, and I was just like, I don't know. She looks kind of tough, but maybe she's not as tough. Maybe she's not. Maybe she's receptive. I don't know. So I just went out and started saying things that I felt about her. The problem I got into was that I had this assumption that women like horses. And so I said she looked like a horse. And she took that to be an insult. And I was really just looking from an aesthetic that horses are beautiful. The women think that there are a lot of women who love horses and they see horses as beautiful. I just assumed that she might reciprocate, and she didn't. She saw it as insulting. She said, you didn't come through and say hello to me firsthand. And I was like, and I didn't know I was supposed to come through and greet with hello. and that she was expecting a process of communication. But I guess the thing is that I just instantly assumed that she would accept an intimate perception. And I guess that's my failures, is that I don't really understand intimacy. I don't understand where you start with conversation. But that's just me. And just the fact that I can jump into a conversation from any point, it catches people off guard. But they might understand it if I said I had aphasia, or they might understand it if aphasia is an oral type dyslexia. And unless I've had time to discuss myself, you probably would never understand me. And so I figure, hey, psychopaths never self-deprecate. Or at least as far as I know, they don't self-deprecate. They have grandiose sense of self-worth. So if I start out my conversations saying that I masturbate and look at porn, and I believe Jesus is the Christ, and things like that, that they're going to think I'm crazy, and then they're going to leave. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. I'm weeding out the people that probably wouldn't be very receptive to me in my audience. And you may wonder why rappers cuss a lot, and it may be for the same reason, to weed out all the people that would not be able to see past the cuss words to the fruit and the ideas that they might have. Some rappers will just cuss, and there won't be any value in what they have to say. Some rappers do, and there are some rappers that don't cuss at all, and they're very poetic, like Beck. Does Beck ever cuss? I don't think he does. And that's the reason why I like Beck. There was another some rappers that were like Beck that were black, and it was De La Soul. And they were poetic, but they were poetic with meaning. And Beck, sometimes he's a bit like the Talking Heads. The Talking Heads, the idea is that words are instruments. They're not, they don't have to really convey meaning, And in the 60s, he had Louie Louie, and the fun of Louie Louie is that nobody knew what the lyrics were, so you could pretty much just be unintelligible when you sang Louie Louie, and everybody had fun with that, and it didn't matter what language you spoke, everybody could sing Louie Louie in the world, okay? And so you go, Louie Louie, baby, we gotta go now, there's not much to it. And you go, now you could go and find out what the lyrics are and sing them, but other people are going to be like, I thought there were no lyrics to that song. It kind of makes sense, but the next time you're going to sing it, they're not going to remember the lyrics. Nobody's going to remember the lyrics. It's best not to even know really kind of what the lyrics are. Even whenever I learn lyrics to songs, I'm like, I don't care for those lyrics. I prefer the ones that I misinterpreted. Like the other day, I was reading the lyrics to Dream On by Aerosmith, and it says, sing with me, sing for the love. And for the longest time, I thought he was saying, sing women, sing for the love. And I was like, sing women, and I thought, that's a really cool, because it kind of like is calling all the women together to sing, but it says sing with me, which is probably what it is, but maybe it was sing women, and then they got this message through that it was sexist, and then they said, okay, well, we'll just change that to sing with me so that everybody can sing, because it makes it sound like men can't sing. And why are you saying sing, tell all the women to sing? They don't have to sing. So it probably was sing women, but they had to change it to sing with me. I think it's more romantic that it says singing women. Okay. I never understood Running with the Devil. I thought it was awful. I thought it was a satanic tune until you read the lyrics from it. Sometimes the lyrics will help you understand that it has meaning, and to some extent, I am running with the devil. It says, I used to think that it says, I have no love you could call real. I have nobody waiting at home. It said, I found the simple life ain't so simple when I was out on that road. I've got no love you could call real. I've got nobody waiting at home. And so the idea is that he's really like me. I'm not married, and there's nobody who's going to look after me. Maybe God's going to look after me. I have to have that hope that God's going to look after me. And that's the test with me is that I have to have that faith, okay? But if you don't have that, then you're running with the devil, And David Lee Roth, for a long time, I thought was kind of, he was just kind of a foolish type guy. But if you really look into him, he has some interesting stories. One of the things he said that he respected tattoos. And he said that his singing teacher, who was Jewish, and he's Jewish, his singing teacher had tattoos. And the tattoos were numbers. And they were given to him whenever he was in Auschwitz. During World War II, he was in Germany. And he said that how he survived was by entertaining the Germans, and he would survive and keep himself alive as long as he could keep entertaining them, because if he failed, he would end up coming out the smokestacks. And I probably murdered the whole idea, but the idea is he told David Lee Roth that you have to entertain so well, otherwise you'll go up in smoke. And he learned that lesson from his instructor, his coach. So if David Lee Roth didn't have that coach, he wouldn't have been David Lee Roth. And David Lee Roth values, his favorite music is old-time jazz, 30s, 40s jazz. And that's where he married two of his favorite songs together and created a hit out of it. I Ain't Got Nobody, says, so I'm so sad and lonely. It says, I'm just a gigolo was one song. The other one was I Ain't Got Nobody. And he put the two together and he made a hit song out of it. And that's the kind of music he likes. But because this being in Van Halen was his career was to be this rock singer. But what he wanted to do was that jazzy stuff. Phil Collins actually will tell you that he doesn't really like so much the rock and roll he was playing. He liked it, but what he really wanted to do was be in a big band. He missed being in a big band. And so when he I guess retired, he tried drumming in a big band environment. And somebody asked him, why would you want to drum for a big band? Or I mean, Tommy, those guys, Tommy Dorsey or whatever. I don't know Tommy Dorsey, Glenn Miller. Why would you want to be involved in that or be involved in jazz or anything like that. And he says, I mean, it was because it was something he looked up to whenever he was drumming. He looks up to all these other people, and he was doing it for himself, just like what's his name of Kiss right now is pursuing getting back to the things that he loved whenever he was young that made him a rock and roll performer, was to listen to the Beatles. And there's old recordings of the members of Kiss, like Gene Simmons and I'm trying to remember his name, them getting together and singing Beatles tunes, So all these musicians you looked up to guys like Buddy Holly. That was the reason why Paul McCartney, when it became Paul McCartney, was Buddy Holly inspired him. He might have had piano lessons before Buddy Holly, but he became Paul McCartney through being inspired by Buddy Holly. And there are people in Texas who are completely against really liking the Beatles. They like Elvis. And they don't understand that the Beatles were inspired by Buddy Holly. And Buddy Holly came from Texas. And it's really funny. And before there was a British invasion, there was an American invasion into Britain, and it was Buddy Holly. He came over there to do some concerts, and when all the youth there got a load of him, it completely turned them on, and that's what caused the British invasion. That's what caused all those guys to come over here, is because we caught them. Buddy Holly caught them after World War II, whenever England was in rubble from all the bombs that the Germans were dropping, and the children were looking for something to fill their time because everything was in ruins. They had all this, they would too easily get depressed, and they were looking for meaning just the same way that people in America before World War II were looking for meaning after the Depression. And that's the reason why they got involved in the wars, because it would give meaning to their lives. And so people are always, whenever they hit 17 or 18, they're looking to find meaning in their lives. The reason why, to find a way to go, and a direction to go, and to set off on, and this is what I'm going to do, And they have to do it with some resistance from their parents, who might actually try to get them to go in a different direction, because their parents believe they'll have success there. And even though you hear the inspirational tales from rock and rollers that they believed in their dreams and they got them, there are rock and rollers out there that didn't get their dreams, and their parents were right, and they ended up finding a profession. Who is it? David Letterman said that if Robin Williams hadn't have brought him into a episode of Mork and Mindy, he probably would have been back home trimming hedges, and he wouldn't have been David Letterman, the talk show host. Because when they look for talk show hosts, they look for somebody who's not going to piss off the people. He's going to keep them talking and about themselves, because a talk show host can't really. They have to keep the conversation going, and they have to keep it centered on the guest. And Jiminy Glick, which is Martin Short's character, is just the opposite, and his comedy there is to try to pretty much destroy the actor that's sitting over here and is expecting questions that are going to center around what they're doing and about them. And Jiminy Glick ends up just ruining all that, and that's a form of comedy. Um, uh, uh, Atkinson, Rowan Atkinson, guy who plays Mr. Bean, did that with Elton John. He had Elton John sitting in his seat, and he says, "Okay, so what if it would have been better if you would have called yourself John Elton?" And Elton was like, "I don't believe this has anything to do with anything. Why are we on this topic?" And it says, "Just humor me. What was the reason why you picked the name Elton? To dwell on something that's completely, stupid. But you can get a sort of comedy out of that, and because talk show hosts should never do that. So, what comedians do is they focus in on things that nobody should ever do, and or things that people don't expect. Okay, because that's where the comedy is. It's where the laughter is when you go off the trail. And like Ellen DeGeneres had a stand-up performance where she said, imagine if you were says, did you ever, whenever you were younger, you would sit in front of the mirror and sing to your favorite tune, like I was singing to the Rolling Stones, pretending I was Mick Jagger, and and going, Jumpin' Jack Flash, and then after you were done with that, you would go downstairs and sit in front of a mirror, eat cheese, drink wine while you imagine the news people would come in. And see, she took it to a whole nother level, and that would cause a laugh because nobody does that, but people didn't see it coming, and she knew how to make people laugh. But the funny thing is that I can remember when Ellen DeGeneres was a comic. I can remember when Whoopi Goldberg was a comic. I can remember some of her stand-up, talking about she did impersonations. She impersonated a maid and talked about the old man she worked for as the old raisin. Okay. She also did a bit where she pretended she was a little black girl who wanted to be Barbie, and would take a towel, put it around her head, and pretend like the towel was her blonde hair. You see? And so those were some of Whoopi Goldberg's first stand-up comedy. That's how she got in to the business of doing stand-up. And then she got to be in the movie Color Purple. Oh no, that was Oprah Winfrey. Wrong. It was Oprah Winfrey. I almost did that. I mean, I did it, but I'm just like, oh shit, that was wrong. Because they're two black people. It's just like that guy on the news who was confronting Samuel Jackson, and he said, how did I saw you on The Matrix. How did you enjoy your thing with Keanu Reeves? And Samuel Jackson got super insulted, and he said, "Oh, I'm not Lawrence Fishburne. You're confusing me with. I'm not that black man. I'm this other black man." And then he got on the guy's case, and that's hard, I don't know if black people do that with white people, fail to recognize, because what it really is it's the inability. It's part of the brain. The brain conceptualizes faces. It breaks faces down, and if you ever try to make paintings, do what are called and you get it whenever you go into art school, you go into college. I got it, and they're called self-portraits, and they'll have everybody in the class do a self-portrait, and the self-portraits will always come out wrong. And the reason why is because because your brain doesn't have the capacity or most people's brains don't have the capacity to understand what they're seeing when they look at somebody's face. They can't see the proportion of the features, the size of the features. And so you'll end up with my self-portrait, a large nose. You'll see a large nose. And the reason why is because what most artists do whenever they do self-portraits is they'll take a photograph and then they will draw a grid on the photograph, and they'll make a grid on their painting with a pencil, and they'll paint in the shapes on the grid, because if they were to do it free form, it would be disproportionate. And that's because they don't have the capacity to really recognize the shapes on the faces of people. They can't see the shape without seeing the person's face. And when white people look at black people for the first time and they see a number of black people, they have a hard time recognizing one black person from another. And the reason why is because their brain is not attuned to recognizing the facial features on a black person's face. And you may think that black people look like white people until you do what Eddie Murphy tried to do once, and that was paint his face white. And he didn't look like a normal white person. He looked like a black person trying to look like a white person. There are black albinos, and if you look at them, they've got different features. Their facial features are quite different. And so, but it is possible to have a white person look black and have the facial features that, are white and with a black tone. What I'm saying is that that racism starts out at a very young age. It's what you are as a child. Unless you're well integrated with people that have different facial characteristics and skin tone, and different size and all that stuff. And, you would have to also include in that midgets and things of that nature. Then you probably won't be able to recognize the differences between the various people, and you won't be able to, and then you will have probably, as children, they have to be able to see things that are, there was this lady talking about when she was living in Russia. Her parents moved to Russia because the Russians were trying to convince black people that in Russia they had no stereotypes, and they were not racist like the Americans, because they were trying to attract people to come to Russia. And but the Russians that she came in contact with had these strange suspicions, like that black people would shed black the same way a charcoal pencil would. And when she was sleeping with a boy she met, his parents came in to check their sheets to see if they were dirty, and they were amazed that the sheets were not dirty, because they assumed that since she was black, that her dandruff or whatever would produce black marks and stuff. Now, I got this came from This American Life, either This American Life or The Moth. It was one of the two. The story, I think it was This American Life, and somebody talked about this, and they had a film. Yeah, it was This American Life, because I can remember Ira Glass saying that there was a film that everybody recognized in Russia that that was well known as a part of Russian cinema, where that gave honor to a black baby, and it was really an attempt to try to say that the Russians were better because they didn't have any racism. but they did. I mean, the thing they didn't understand is that racism is really a problem with the brain. It's the failure to identify with people that don't look like you, and then people develop beliefs around those people they have never come in contact with, or have come in contact with, but just, and everybody's got a little bit of racism still in them. I was exploited at the other day whenever somebody was on AltSpace was talking to me, and I just instantly assumed they were Indian because there's a lot of East Indians right now in AltSpace. They're using AltSpace to develop their English skills, and I assumed he was Indian, and he revealed to me that he was Jewish, and and the problem there is in AltSpace, you can't tell, you can't see people. What you see is their avatars, and their avatars. I mean, he was dark skinned, and I never seen a dark skinned Jewish person. But evidently he's a dark skinned Jewish person, or maybe he was trying to take advantage of that. But we've had people come in and pretend like they are East Indians whenever they were really from San Francisco, and they were playing upon playing upon the stereotype to take advantage or troll people. And so it happens. And I got in this discussion that was going nowhere with this guy, trying to talk about various sorts of things, but he was always eager to try to throw a cog in anything that I had to say. And I ended it with, I said, okay, can you tell me why, where the taxes went that Matthew collected? Or maybe I said the reason why the Jews hated Matthew. And he says, I don't know. And I said, well, I'll leave that to you to figure out. I'm gone. I'm out of this discussion, because he was trying to get me to do something. I don't know. But I did learn some stuff from him, and that's the problem is that I don't do very well interacting with people. It's very hard for me to perceive social discourse between people. Sometimes it's easy. Sometimes I can go a little batty and crazy, and I can do some funny stuff and distract people, and and they don't know what to make of me. Anyhow, this is going to go forever. Why was it that all those other videos stopped whenever I was talking about, and this one is not stopping for anything? Look, I'm going to include all the other videos, and I don't believe. I mean, if I become world famous, if I become a meme, if something happens, then I guess I'll regret it. But yeah, it's kind of strange, It's you could get famous for anything, and you could get famous even when you don't want to get famous. And all it takes is somebody with a camera to take you from some angle, and then you could regret that, or you could regret presenting it. But the way I see it is that if people see I'm crazy and all that kind of stuff, all the other stuff I had to say might get dug up, and then they might find out that I'm more sane than they are. And I don't know. And I try to keep centered in saying that I really don't know. I try to keep centered and letting people that I know that I have problems. Because I see in the world people that try to talk this talk and they try to present themselves as being perfect. You see that of televangelists, they don't believe that they can ever be a failure and be on stage. And the thing is that if you build yourself up to be something perfect, then you're going to fall flat on your face, and maybe I will. But for me, it's more of a mystery. How is that going to play out? How is that going to play out? And why hasn't it already happened? And so with me, it's just a curiosity. It's like, but I'm thinking that if I can keep sticking more ideas together, that might get people to think, to inspire thought. It'll give somebody who's eager to prove me wrong a lot of work, and maybe they'll make a lot of books, and they'll sell a lot of books, and it will improve their life, and maybe they'll take some of that money, and maybe they learn a little bit from me, even though they were trying to disprove me, or by listening to me, they might learn something from me, and then they could use that to make the world a better place in their neck of the woods. See, because there's only so far you can go with making the world a better place. And so there will be people who will make a career out of juxtaposing themselves to you. Everybody has those guys. I mean, they exist. And there will be people that will be doppelgangers to you, that will make money off of pretending to be you. And I mean, there's the thing about life, the thing about existence is the realization that everybody has to survive. And you have to kind of respect that there are people that are going to survive off of the popularity you generate, and hopefully, if you get to be popular, that you're pulling something along that gives some value, and maybe people won't think that you're so crazy, But it's really not all that important if you get perceived as crazy, because, I mean, what if I become schizophrenic? What if, I would become crazy just to reciprocate their desire to see me as crazy? I become crazy. Then in that I gain my privacy, because nobody wants to have anything to do with me. I can do that. I can live that lifestyle, because I've lived that lifestyle for quite a long time. I think it'll be and the thing is that no matter right now, because of virtual reality, no matter how crazy and alone you become, you can always find somebody to talk to in alt space, because nobody will ever know who you are in alt space. That would be, Microsoft. I have no problem with Microsoft taking that little bit of video. I'll say that Microsoft has license over that. They can turn it into an advertisement. That's fine with me. So, because there's a benefit there, and that benefit is the ability to be human. You can go into alt space and be a human. And get yourself an Oculus Quest 1, Quest 2, and Quest S, any kind of video headset, or PC. They don't have it for the Macintosh. Or they do have it for Macintosh, but you can't do certain things with the Macintosh. They don't have it for Linux. I wish they had it for Linux. They have it for Android. Why not Linux? They don't have it for Android cell phones. They did it one time. I had this conversation with Jinx about that. They had it one time. But they don't have it anymore. So I'm going to let this video go. And I'm going to think about letting the other videos go. The one where I got kind of deep. But this one first.